grab your third arm, grab your jeans, and not the ones you're wearing. It's time for Genestealer Cults in Necromunda. Hello and welcome to the Necromundown with another one of our house deep dives, this time back to Genestealers, the normal ones.
Yes, not Malstrain.
Due to the release of High Secundus, we ended up doing Malstrains first. Check it out over there. This is back to the original ones, which, as we said at the end of the Malstrain video, have not been replaced by the Malstrains.
Unfortunately.
They're very, very different.
Yes.
Just in how they act and even just what they do.
Mm-hmm.
They're functionally... The only thing they really share is theme, I would say.
Yeah, I think so.
So, Genestealer Cults. Brief lore.
So, in general, Genestealer Cults are the infiltrators of the aliens. It's weird that I'm doing the lore this time.
I was about to say.
Because I play Genestealer Cults. They're the infiltrators. They go onto a planet. They basically create a cult from the inside. And they prep the world to be taken over by the Tyranids. And everybody, once the Tyranids are called, everybody on the planet gets devoured, or the Tyranids die in the invasion. And this includes the Genestealer Cults, which is why you don't really find, like, special Genestealer Cults.
Yeah.
There's the Patriarch, which is the leader of the planet, and then everybody else is a pawn that will die eventually.
Yeah. The only way to be successful long-term as a Genestealer Cult is to be successful enough not to get wiped out, but not too successful
Yeah.
to get noticed by the Tyranids and actually summon your star gods. They think they're gods. They think they're star gods, basically. On Necromunda, Genestealers, they get in through shipments, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Genestealers are everywhere. They get in through shipments. Necromunda is relatively close to Terra. It's kind of like in the galactic, or the main Imperial Center. So it's pretty well monitored and stamped out. There's never been anything approaching a full rebellion on Necromunda. Genestealer cults tend to rise, get squished, rise, get squished, rise, get squished. They've never quite been successful enough to be invaded by the Tyranids. Yeah. And even if they were, the Tyranids would have to get all the way through, like, everything to get there, and it probably wouldn't go well for the Tyranids.
Yeah.
There's a lot of armies in their way. But they're still there, and they have a long history on the planet. As long as the planet has had interstellar travel, they've been there.
Yep.
Now, game-wise...
Mm-hmm. Game-wise, they're a little hard to describe for Necromunda.
Yeah, I would say melee and shenanigans-based team.
Yes. So what I wrote was sneaky, all-rounder. They use like mutations and weird powers to kind of get a leg up on their opponent. So basically, Dalak with mutations.
Yeah, and a different emphasis on melee.
Yeah, there's some emphasis on melee, whereas Dalak doesn't really get.
No. Dalak just has like one melee model that is really, really, really good.
That's true. They have one special.
But so do Genestealer Cults.
Yes.
So you want to start with the house-specific skills.
Yes.
Which, in this case, they don't have their own skill tree.
Yeah.
But they do have their own cult weird powers.
I believe we did talk about these when we did the Genestealer Corrupted gangs.
Yes.
But we'll talk about them here.
Because you get access to these if you get a corrupted gang. Which
we will talk about them here in their own format. The only one in the whole faction that can get this is your leader if you take an adept. There's two different leaders. There's the adept and the alpha.
Yes.
The alpha is not psyker, but the adept is, and it's the only way to get these psychic powers.
Yeah, there's really no other way to do it at all, actually.
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
So less psychic focus than Dalak, because Dalak can have a few psychers.
Right.
The first one on the list is Hypnosis, which is a basic. Choose an enemy that is within 9 inches that has not activated yet. That fighter can only perform a single move, simple action. So my argument was, in the reading, I couldn't tell if it was they can only perform a single action and that action is move, or they can't perform 2 move actions.
I think it's the former.
I also think it's the former.
Because it's hypnosis. The idea is it's hypnotizing you to walk.
Yeah. And also, if it's within 9 inches and they just don't perform a move action, they just charge you or shoot you or whatever, it would be useless.
Right.
So as that, it's pretty good. You can walk up and use it, and just being able to turn off basically an entire activation is pretty strong.
And it's just a basic, yeah.
Yep.
So you can't perform it twice because it's a basic, but it doesn't require a check.
Nope. Which is nice compared to some of the ones later.
Unbreakable Will is a basic but continuous. When a friendly nerve or willpower test is made within 9 inches of the psyker, use the adept's cool or willpower instead. Niche, but not bad.
Yeah, it's not terrible. It can save you in the right situation, but
I just wouldn't pick it over the other options.
yeah, it's a whole skill choice.
Yeah.
The next one is Zealot, which is a double action, also continuous. Once per turn, when a friendly fighter within 9 inches of the adept makes a fight or charge action, you get to reroll all hit rolls of a 1 for that action. Extremely strong.
Rerolls in Necromunda are rare.
Yep. They are super rare. It's only once per turn, which is fine. And the way that it is worded, it's if you start the action within 9 inches, you get to reroll.
Yes.
So if you start within 9 inches for the charge and then leave it, you still get the reroll.
Correct. That's what makes it very powerful.
Yeah.
And you have some good melee options.
Yes, there are some good ones here.
If you, I mean, we'll get to this with the leader choices later, but if you're picking the adept, you are kind of saying my leader is a buff piece.
Yes.
And there's actually not a lot of good buff piece leaders in Necromunda. This is kind of the only time this really works.
Yeah, good point.
Without making an overseer bot. Which is not the case here. So yeah, I like that. Rerolling hits, rerolls in general in Necromunda are pretty rare. Rerolling all hit rolls of 1 is really rare.
Yeah.
And pretty dang juicy.
Yeah. There is, for those of you who don't know or don't use it, you can make a weapon, is it lucky?
Master crafted.
Master crafted, which means once per game you can reroll a dice.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
This one is once per turn, and it's all dice that you make attack with. It's pretty good. Next up is Mind Control, which is another basic action. Yeah, a lot of these are like...
That's just Psychers in a nutshell.
That's true. Choose an enemy within 9 inches. The target immediately shoots, even if they've already been expended, so they can use their token out or whatever. Shooting at the target... The target is selected by the GSC player.
Yes.
So you pick an enemy, that enemy shoots another enemy of your choice.
Yes.
I did use this in my last game with GSC, and it was good to an extent because line of sight matters.
Yep.
Because you don't get to change facing, unfortunately. That would make it very good.
Yes.
I think you could set up something where it's, as we'll get to the adept later, you can get infiltrate on them. So you can like get into the back lines and get a heavy bolter or a multi-melta or something that could see more of the board. But like if you're just walking up the board, I think it's going to be hard to do.
Now, you can use 2 weird powers a turn, right?
Yes. So as long as they're basic.
Anyway, mind control. It is, yeah, so it's dependent on A, if they have shooting.
Yeah.
And B, if they have shooting that is pointing at somewhere in that, line of sight cone at something that you could shoot at. If you can, it's potentially game ending or game winning.
Yep.
If you mind control their multi-melta champion, you could just ruin someone's entire day.
Yeah.
9 inches is short, though, so that means you're probably not going to be able to mind control their backline fighters who would have good line of sight, which is kind of the problem here. And I will say that once you know an enemy adept has this, it is pretty easy to play around in a lot of situations.
Yep. Yeah, that is what I saw a lot.
That's the only downside to this, because otherwise it's really, really powerful.
Yeah.
It's an intensely powerful effect. If your opponent has to play around you like that, that is still affecting their positioning, and it's a mental tax, which means it's still good. Having this in your toolbox is good. I don't know if I would pick it first over some of the other options, but I would definitely pick it second a whole lot of the time.
Next up is Assail, which is another basic action. You make a ballistic skill roll, unfortunately, versus the target within 12 inches on a hit. Move the target D3, then they become prone and pinned. If they get in contact with any piece of terrain or a standing fighter, then they take both the standing fighter that they hit and the target take a strength 3, damage 1 hit, and they're both prone and pinned. The real problem with this one, so force movement's really strong. It's only D3, which can be bad. But the real problem is you have to make a ballistic skill. You have to make a shooting attack.
And you have a ballistic skill 4 with an adept, right?
You have a ballistic skill 4.
You do they also become prone and pinned, which means you can't combo this with mind control because they're prone and pinned.
Yeah.
And when prone and pinned, your facing is actually all around you.
Yes.
And you can only blind fire at -2 to hit. So you could
technically still doable.
You could knock someone down, and if you like knock down a Vansar champion who's at 2 up to hit anyway, and then they're hitting on a 4, but their target's in short range, they get a +1. They're still hitting on a 3.
Yeah.
So you could combo this with mind control. Honestly, it's more about the force movement and getting people away from you. The problem is D3 is just not very much.
D3 is not very far.
It's more like a prone and pinned.
It's basically a gun that can't really damage unless you get lucky.
Right.
And at that point, like a 4 at BS is...
Yeah, I wouldn't take it. Again, it's not bad in a vacuum, but with the other options...
Yeah. And keep in mind that all of this, unlike Delok,
yes,
all of this can be replaced with any of the psychic powers in the Book of the Outcast.
which, you can see a review on that one, but there's some spicy ones
There's
in
some
there.
really good ones in there.
Last but least is Force Blast, which is the basic enemies within 3 inches are pushed D3 plus 1 inches away, directly away. If they're pushed off a platform, they can have to make a initiative test to avoid falling. If they are passed, they get put on the ledge. If they get knocked into something, they can take a damage, and they're pinned. But they're not pinned unless they hit something.
Yep. So it just pushes them. It just goes boop.
It's a no-touchy bubble.
But it's a real small bubble.
You could also just leave.
You could also just walk away.
You can hit the bricks.
Or you could like smack him with your shock stave or something. Like
Right.
anything else.
I mean, yeah, and I think you wrote here, if your adept's in melee, it's already dead.
Yeah.
That's very, very, very true.
Yeah. If they charge you with a juvie, just bonk them with your one melee attack.
If they charge you with something else, this is not going to help.
It's not going to do.
Because you're not going to get to do it before. I mean, I guess I could see using this to avoid having to make an initiative test to get away from someone with a really good initiative test.
I guess.
Like
yeah.
Escher.
Without them hitting you one time.
Right. Well, with some things, one time is all it
That's
takes.
true. That's true. Corpse Grinder Cults.
Again, it's not the worst thing, but I wouldn't take it over a lot of the other options.
Agreed.
Now, let's go to... So that's their weird powers. That's the replacement they have for the skills.
Yeah.
Except not, because only...
Because only the adept gets it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of rough.
Yeah.
This book is definitely showing its age.
Yes. Let's go on to their house mechanics. There's a few of them. So they're always outlaws.
Yep.
You're always in trouble with the law. Breaking the law, breaking the law. Captured Genestealer Cults fighters are worth their full value to the guilders instead of half.
Because they're Xenos.
Which means buying them back is a giant pain in the butt unless your opponents are being very nice to you, and they won't.
Don't get captured.
Reputation gains affect hangers-on and brutes at basically -5. So normally, reputation, you start the game with 1 rep, and you can have 1 hanger-on or brute. When you get 5, you unlock another slot. And then 10, then 15, then 20, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Genestealers are delayed by 5.
Yes. You don't get your second slot until you hit 10 rep.
Yes.
And then it's every 5 past that.
Right.
The benefit of this is with the new book, there is a cap on what normal gangs can do, but not a cap on what GSC can have. So if you get to, because the cap on normal groups is 25, if you get to 30, I don't know how you got to 30, you can technically have 6, or then 7, or then 8.
Do they call it the Genestealer Cults ignore that, or is it just...
It says +1 for every 5.
Okay.
So yes. They did call out specifically that this overrides the one in the new book.
Excellent. Excellent. That's a fun thing, I guess.
I mean, if you get, like, are you in a long-standing campaign with massive amounts of rep? Basically, your head looks a little funny.
Yeah.
I don't know if I should trust you.
Right. Speaking of looking a little funny, not their head, but their extra arm. So you can extra arms. They cost credits.
They do on everyone except for the leader.
Right.
The alpha gets theirs for free.
So shooting with an unwieldy weapon is a basic action, kind of like suspensors. Although just like suspensors, it does not remove the unwieldy tag.
Correct.
So there are things that can't work with unwieldy weapons. It does not override that.
Right.
Unfortunately. Fighters can carry a 4th weapon instead of just a 3rd weapon slot, and they can attack in melee with a 3rd weapon. So you can tri-wield.
Yeah, instead of dual wielding, you have a 3rd arm. I see it kind of like the power packs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Alphas get +1 attack in melee that must be unarmed and gains rending for that single attack. Non-alphas get 1 attack with any melee weapon, and that attack has rending regardless of weapon used.
I don't know why they made the distinction that the alpha one is somehow worse.
Because it's supposed to be the alpha claw.
Yeah, but it has to be unarmed.
Yes, that's the problem. It doesn't get a strength bonus.
So if I were the arbitrator, I would probably just rule it that it's the normal one.
I mean, they could probably use the extra help.
Yeah, they could. And I don't know. So it also says on both of them that you either get the shooting benefit or the melee benefit.
Yep.
I would also probably say that you get both.
Probably both in the same activation is what they mean.
Sure. Yeah. That's fair. But you can have a heavy bolter and 2 weapons and still have 4 slots and all that stuff.
Neophyte hybrids, which is your gangers, have to be equal to or higher than the rest of the gang, which means half your gang has to be neophytes. That's basically the same as everybody else.
Yeah. The only difference is that they have 2 gangers, and one of them doesn't count for that.
Right.
You have to be neophytes.
Right. So the other thing is dock visits. If any member of a Genestealer Cults gang is escorted to the dock with medical escort actions, the cost is 3d6 instead of 2d6 times 10 credits. So, because you have to bribe them to not tell on you.
Yeah.
So get a rogue doctor, basically.
Yeah, because rogue docs still cost the same. It's just 50 credits, and your dock visits are free. So.
Yeah. And you still start the game with 1 reputation, so you can still get your first hanger on. You might want to be a rogue doc.
I agree.
Because otherwise, yeah, they will
Yeah, charge you out the nose.
Yeah, they'll charge you out the nose.
It says specifically in the ongoing rules for GSC that whenever you buy new war gear and you can give it to somebody, rather than having to keep your war gear or exchange it for something that's better, you can drop any war gear you have that you want to.
Okay.
So they're a lot more flexible in the equipment that they have.
Okay.
Doesn't come up very often, but it can come up.
Yeah. And a lot of people ignore that rule anyway because that's an addition with the latest book.
Yeah, it is.
And better war gear is very, very, very subjective.
Also true. Yeah.
So,
because there's like, oh, you can do anything that's better.
all right. So normally we'd go to the fighters next, but we're gonna actually go into one of the exotic beast next because it's so important and integral to the faction.
Yes.
Basically. And that exotic beast is the psychic familiar. So for a whopping 25 credits,
Already too cheap.
you can have up to 3 of these
Per guy.
per guy, which is so strange. He has a bunch of stats that do not matter.
No.
He's got toughness 2 and strength 2 and 1 wound and 2 up initiative and a bunch of mental skills that really, really don't matter. You don't ever attack with this guy. Basically, the point is that he has Omen of Fortune, which is while the familiar is within 3 inches of its owner, that fighter may avoid 1 successful hit per turn by making a successful willpower check. The willpower is on the
fighter.
not on this guy. So this
Right.
guy has 6 out willpower, but you still make him on the fighter. Now your fighters have decent willpower.
Yeah.
If the check is successful, the attack counts as missed.
Yep. You
And
just missed.
that's per attack, which means anything with multi-hits ignores it. Templates are still placed as normal, but it's like you're just somehow dodging it. They also have a 3-up invulnerable save. And a 50% chance, basically you dodge templates on a 4-up.
Yeah.
Which does mean that templates are the best way to deal with these, as I found.
That is true.
Blast markers are the best way to deal with these. Double dip, make them roll that willpower and that. So, yeah, this is a lot like the Chaos Familiar, which we talked about.
Yep.
Did we do Chaos Helots?
We did. We did Chaos Corrupted,
yes.
and we did GSC Corrupted, both of which can use their normal familiar.
So this is the most powerful thing in the faction.
Yep.
And
If they didn't have this, they'd be nigh unplayable.
it's weird because it's like the only thing they have, but it's also really not fun in a lot of ways.
It's just like, oh, my entire thing missed.
It really does mean that you can only bring down, unless you get lucky, which happens in Necromunda.
Yeah.
Because these guys have willpowers of like 5 on their adept.
Pretty good, yeah.
You really need weight of dice, which in Necromunda is not a thing because multiple attacks still only have 1 dice in a shooting attack.
Yes. In a melee attack, because this only ignores 1 hit roll, you get 5 attacks. I can only ignore 1.
It means getting melee into melee with these guys is a great way to deal with them.
Yeah, it is the way to take them down.
Mr. Snake did not care about your familiar.
It's like I ignore 1 of them.
He ate the familiar and then he ate the guy.
And then you overkill me by 5.
Yes. Yeah. So keep that in mind. And basically, it means that you add 25 credits cost to your leader and champions.
Yes.
Your normal gangers can't have it, but your leaders and champions can.
Leaders and champions only.
So speaking of, let's talk about the models. So first off is your leader, and you have 2 options.
As mentioned earlier, you have 2 options. You can either pick the Adept, who is the Psyker, for 120 credits. Unfortunately, only movement 4.
He's a little slow.
Weapon skill 4, ballistic skill 4, strength 3, toughness 3, 2 wounds, 3-up initiative, 2 attacks, leadership 3+.
Yeah.
Which is crazy good.
Yes.
For as much as you use leadership stat.
Yeah.
Cool 5-up, willpower 5-up, and intelligence 4-up.
Which I believe this is the single best mental stat spread in the game.
Fantastic mental stats. Their primary skills are cunning, leadership, and the cult weird powers.
Yep. If you're taking this guy, you're picking weird powers.
Yes.
Like you can have cunning and leadership, which are both great skill trees.
Yep.
But if you're taking the adept, you are taking him because you are taking him for the weird powers.
Agreed. The alternative is the Cult Alpha, or the beat stick. He's 145 credits, so a little bit more. Movement 5, weapon skill and ballistic skill 3-up, strength 4 base, toughness 3, 2 initiative, 3-up, 2 wounds, 3-up initiative, 2 attacks, leadership 3, cool 5, willpower 5, intelligence 4, so the same ridiculous mental stats. His primary skills are combat, leadership, and shooting, which are also very decent. You don't get cunning, but very strong. And they come with a hazard suit.
Yep, and that extra arm.
And the extra arm.
So what's funny about these guys is that you can spec him into either combat or shooting, and has the skill trees to back it up.
Yep.
And with a 5-up willpower, that familiar goes great on either of these guys.
True.
5-up willpower also means that the Cult Adept is one of the most effective psychers out of the box in the game.
True.
Because a lot of people have 6s. This guy's got a 5, which is fantastic, personally. Yeah, which one you pick depends kind of whether or not you want to play with weirds.
Yes.
If you're playing with the weird powers here are more debuffs and buffs for your guys, so you'll need to find your damage elsewhere. Or you can just make the Cult Alpha your beat stick melee or shooty guy and just have him run in and kill things.
I think either are great options. Up next is your champion, which is the Hybrid Acolyte. That's 85 credits. Plus 45 if you want the extra arm, which you probably do. Also, unfortunately, movement 4. I don't know why these move as slow as Vansar, but whatever.
Yeah.
Weapon skill 3, ballistic skill 3, strength 3, toughness 3, 1 wound, 3 up initiative, 1 attack, which is bad. Leadership 4, cool 5, willpower 7, and initiative intelligence 6.
Yeah.
So 1 wound and 1 attack on a champion?
Yeah, 1 wound is rough. 1 attack means that you don't necessarily want to use them as melee, but they're kind of like, they can get an extra arm for 45 credits.
True.
Which is a lot. And if you're... Now, that being said, 85 credits is cheap for a champion.
That is true.
Like, they're not great. They're one of the worst champions in the game. But they're also one of the cheaper champions in the game.
And then
champions
you put a familiar on there, and they're actually kind of hard to take down.
Right. Put a familiar on there, and they have a 7-up willpower, so more than 50% chance of ignoring a given hit.
Right.
Yeah, they're not bad. Like, with a familiar... That's 110 credits and 60-something% chance to ignore the first hit.
Yep.
They're actually pretty good. And now, because of their weapon skill 3, you might think I can make them melee, and you can.
Yes.
In that case, you buy the extra arm.
To give them an extra attack.
Right. And then suddenly they're up there with most champions in cost and everything else, except a little slow. Otherwise, though, you could make these guys shooting.
Yes.
And they're pretty good at shooting with a 3-up ballistic skill. They get cunning and ferocity. Ferocity is just good for keeping you alive. Cunning is good for infiltrate.
Yes, infiltrate can be very strong on these guys.
Right. So I really see the Hybrid Acolyte. This is kind of strange from their 40k iteration where they're very much a melee glass cannon. I really see the Hybrid Acolyte as your shooting champion, honestly.
Yeah, it kind of annoys me because I play GSC in 40k as well, that the Hybrid Acolyte in 40k is melee, and the Neophyte, which we'll talk about later, is the shooting one, and it's reversed to Necromunda?
Kind of reversed, yeah. I think the Neophyte's still also shooty.
No, because they can only take basic weapons. They can only take, except for the specials. But
yeah.
It's weird. There's actually weapons in the Neophyte unit that a Neophyte cannot take.
Right.
Because they're heavy weapon options.
Which can be taken by these guys, yeah. It's very strange.
It is weird.
And then on the meteor side of the spectrum, you got the Aberrant. So the Aberrant is your actual big muscle beat stick.
Yes.
He's 95 credits for 5-inch movement. The fact he moves faster is just so stupid to me.
Yeah.
3-up weapon skill, a 6-up ballistic skill. Strength 5, toughness 4. Only 2 wounds. Initiative 5, 2 attacks, 9 leadership, 4 cool, 6 willpower, and 10 intelligence. So he's not, well, I called him a champion. He's really not a champion.
No.
He is basically a ganger who doesn't even count as a ganger for the purpose of having gangers.
Yes. He basically only counts as a ganger for like scenario reasons.
Right.
Which is good for you.
He doesn't get, he has access to the Brawn and Ferocity trees, but he doesn't get to pick skills.
No.
He upgrades like a normal ganger.
He does start with the Unstoppable skill, which can heal him a little bit.
It is pretty decent. The melee weapons they have access to are really good.
They are.
So the fact that he can't ever take any more equipment or items aside from melee weapons and armor is not really a problem. But you can also give him great melee weapons, and you can give him armor.
Yeah, you can give him great armor. I would recommend eventually going up to light carapace.
Yeah.
Because heavy carapace is a little rough on a melee model, but
This also puts your initiative at 6.
Yeah.
Don't get flashbanged.
Yeah. But yeah, he is a beast. There was very, very few times he charged something and didn't kill it.
Yes. Again, I think the only time he charged something and didn't kill it was when he charged a
snake.
A sump beast.
Yeah. Which was like triple or quadruple his credits.
Yes. So fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, Aberrants are your actual melee.
They have 2 wounds, so I feel like that's the reason the champions don't.
And toughness 4 and strength 5 is really good.
Yeah, they are. They're like the reason to take them.
Yeah.
I like them.
And then last, but, kind of least, but not really a problem least, is your basic gangers. Neophyte hybrids.
Yep. They are 45 credits, only movement 4, unfortunately. Weapon skill 4, ballistic skill 4, strength 3, toughness 3, 1 wound, 4 up initiative, 1 attack, 7 plus leadership, 5 plus cool, which is still pretty good for a ganger.
Yes.
6 plus willpower, which is better than the champion. The champion's a 7.
Yep.
That's weird. And intelligence 8 up. Well, still pretty stupid. They come with a hazard suit base, so you start with armor on your guys, which is kind of nice.
6 up armor save.
6 up armor and immune to fire.
Woohoo!
They also upgrade like a regular ganger, so randomly.
Yep.
And they have the cunning and ferocity if you ever get to make them a specialist.
And you can spend 45 credits to get them an extra arm.
I don't know if I would.
I wouldn't. You can only give them basic melee and pistol weapons, which is,
Yeah,
but
normal.
But it's not just gang list only.
Yes, it is. You can give them any weapons in those categories
From the trading post.
from the trading post.
Which can be very good.
At gang creation, you get one that's a specialist, so you can get special weapons with them. And then as you purchase them later, you can give them special weapons later.
Right.
Which is an interesting distinction.
It is.
So you start very basic with your gangers, and you can in the late game get very, very strong with 4 grenade launchers or something.
Yep.
For 45 credits, I think they're a pretty good deal.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think that they're a great deal. They're basic, but they do what they do great.
Yeah.
I don't think you want to turn these into melee.
No.
You keep them with basic weapons. Maybe a couple with melee, just like to run interference.
Yeah.
But they're not as cheap as juvies, and they're not juvies.
Yeah.
They don't have the juvies rules. You really don't have juvies in this game. So honestly, just get them basic weapons. Shotguns, bolters, and autoguns and las guns are all good.
Decently shooty to back up your melee guys.
Yep. And then last, their only unique equipment. They don't really have unique equipment, which kind of makes sense because they're just like mining guys.
Yeah, they're just picking stuff up from the mine, using it in their war.
Cult icon for 40 credits. It adds +1 to the group activation.
Yep, max 1 in your gang. So
It's fine.
it's really weird because technically it's on the list for the ganger, even though the ganger can't use it.
Yeah, because you can't group activate.
You can't group activate. Yeah, it adds +1 to your group activations, not gives your group activation X.
It is worth noting that if you've probably noticed, we didn't talk about promotion. That's because there isn't any.
Yeah.
And that's because Genestealer cults are genetically confined into their roles.
Yeah.
Like a neophyte hybrid never gets to be an acolyte hybrid.
Yeah, you are born neophyte.
Then
You'll die neophyte.
Yeah.
Which kind of makes sense.
Kind of, but it does mean that they're not flexible. So I guess let's talk Genestealer Cult in general. What do they do? What are they good at?
I'm not 100% sure what they're good at. They have decent melee, decent ranged, a little squishy, but Genestealer Cults should be.
Yeah.
Again, they're kind of like all-arounders with a little bit of shenanigans, but I feel like they're not terribly deep.
So I will agree they're not terribly deep. I think they're not nearly as squishy as it seems.
Okay.
The 2 wounds, or the 1 wound on the champion does suck.
It does.
But that's it. That's the only thing that makes them squishier than anyone else.
That's true.
And no one else has access to the aberrant.
That's true.
Most things don't have access to an aberrant until they start paying for it at brute prices, which are not 95 credits.
Yeah, that's
95 credits is good. This is a army. This is a gang with a couple melee threat pieces, either aberrants or you're a leader, or you back up those aberrants with your call it Psyker instead, with some very bog standard but decent shooting in the form of the neophyte hybrids and good shooting in the form of the acolyte hybrids. Any leader with access to shooting is good. So you could very easily make your leader, and I would recommend this if you're going to have the non-Psyker leader, I would make him the shooting champion. I wouldn't make him melee.
Yeah.
Because he's not going to be that much better in melee than your aberrants.
No, he's not.
And he's going to be more expensive.
He's strength 4 instead of strength 5. So he's +1 strength to most fighters, just not for the aberrant.
But he's also toughness 3 instead of toughness 4.
Also true.
They're both 2 wounds.
Both have 2
They're
attacks.
both the same speed.
Yep.
I mean, the aberrant's got way worse mental skills, and you can't give him field armor later, but
yeah,
you can just buy another aberrant.
True. Just and then there's another one.
Right. I think the other thing that they're very good at is the fact that they're champions who don't have shooting skills but can be built shooting pretty decently.
Yeah.
Or built kind of melee-ish. They have access to cunning.
Yes, cunning is very strong.
And cunning is incredibly strong. So you can build an Overwatch champion, or you can build a Infiltrate champion. Either of these are very, very good.
And since other than the aberrants, everybody has access to everything in the trading post, you can really go crazy with some of this stuff.
Yep. Kind of like the other factions we talked about like that. They're going to start off a little weak and get very, very strong as they go on.
Yep.
And their downsides aren't terrible downsides. They're not super
not
restricted
really.
in campaigns or anything like that. That's why I think we said that they're really are just a very different gang from the Malstrain corrupted gangs.
Yeah.
So this is definitely still has a lot of gas in it. I think you could have a lot of fun playing this.
I agree.
The book is old and is kind of showing its age, but I would say that they are better fleshed out than non-Bad Zone Enforcers in a lot of ways.
That's true. That's fair. I think they're more fleshed out than Malstrains.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. The Malstrain, I meant the Malstrain Corrupted gangs.
Oh.
The Malstrain Corrupted gang isn't fleshed out. It just has so many deep options.
Yeah.
This doesn't have a particularly deep well. You're kind of playing a doomed gang. Because you can never win with Genestealers, really. Because if you got noticed enough, the Hellmore guys will show up.
Yes, exactly.
A Spryer shows up. As far as starting the gang goes, you really can't go wrong. I wouldn't invest in more than one Aberrant to start.
Sure. Yeah. They can be expensive.
Because you really do want to hit 9 models at minimum of these guys. However, you can only have 2 champions to start.
Yeah, they are restricted in how many you can start.
So it's kind of made for you. It really depends on whether you want to go Psyker or not. And as far as which one you want to go with, I think they're both equally viable.
That's fair.
The shooting leader will be more expensive but more effective initially. The Psyker leader will be less expensive but more of a buff piece for your other guys initially.
Yeah.
But will be a bigger force multiplier later because your shooter leader, or if you choose to build a melee, the only thing you can do to get better is get a bigger, better gun.
Yeah.
Which in Necromunda, you throw a multi-melta on him and that's still terrifying. Whereas your Psyker, I mean, you can also give him all those same weapons.
True.
And you can buff up his stats to be good too.
You're just not as good at what they can,
Initially.
what a shooting one can do. Yeah.
Right. And I think that's it for our Genestealers.
I think so.
So that's it from us for the Genestealer Cults. A shorter one today, but that's just because they're not terribly deep, I guess. That I would not take that as an indication that they are not fun or valid to play, though.
Yeah, I had a blast with them.
They're still a slightly older book, but I think they're more fun to play than it sounds, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like, they don't have a ton of house mechanics going for them or house skills or anything like that. They're just kind of on the periphery. But I think they're perfectly fine and fun to play. Like, they're in-game, they feel just as good as almost any other game, I would say.
That's fair. Definitely more fun than Deloc.
That depends on your opinion. I haven't played either yet. I'll get there someday. Actually, I'll probably never get to Genestealers.
No,
I'm going to be honest. I'll play Malstrain Corrupted before I play these guys, just because I think it's funny. That's a me thing, not a you thing. That's it from us this time. I'm not sure what book we're doing next. It depends on what comes out next and when we get that squat book, which we're all just itching for.
Exactly.
Thank you for all your kind comments on the last video. Yes, we know the squat book is coming out. That was recorded before that announcement. So we are not doing squats until the book comes out because ideally it looks like they're going to get a whole bunch of new stuff.
Yeah.
What will we do next? You'll have to wait and see. And until that time,
bye.